NATO alliance experiencing brain death, says Macron. NATO forces are seen by many as key to European defense. President Emmanuel Macron of France has described NATO as brain dead, stressing what he sees as waning commitment to the transatlantic alliance by its main guarantor, the US. Interviewed by The Economist, he cited the US failure to consult NATO before pulling forces out of northern Syria. He also appeared to cast doubt on whether NATO members were still committed to collective defense. News script from BBC. All clips may not represent the story. Watch to learn English the way you've learnt your mother tongue, as this video is especially made. NATO has responded by saying the alliance remains strong. It celebrates 70 years since its founding at a London summit next month. What we are currently experiencing is the brain death of NATO, Mr. Macron told the London-based newspaper. He warned European members that they could no longer rely on the US to defend the alliance, established at the start of the Cold War to bolster Western European and US security. Article 5 of NATO's founding charter stipulates that an attack on one member will produce a collective response from the alliance. But Mr. Macron appeared unsure whether it was still valid when asked. "I don't know," he said. The alliance, Mr. Macron is quoted as saying, only works if the guarantor of last resort functions as such. "I'd argue that we should reassess the reality of what NATO is in the light of the commitment of the United States." The French leader urged Europe to start thinking of itself as a geopolitical power to ensure it remained in control of its destiny. Why the doubts over NATO? President Donald Trump's abrupt decision to pull most US forces out of northeastern Syria in October took European NATO members by surprise. The move opened the way for Turkey, itself a powerful NATO member, to push into Syria and create what it termed a security zone along its border. Kurdish forces, who had been helping the US fight the Islamic State (IS) group, were expelled from the area. Mr. Macron at the time criticized NATO's failure to respond to the Turkish offensive. Mr. Trump has frequently accused European NATO members of failing to provide their fair share of military spending and for relying too heavily on the US for their defense. For his part, Mr. Macron has already been at the forefront of moves to boost defense cooperation among European countries. However, the European Union's other main military power, the UK, emphasizes the importance of NATO to European defense. What reaction has there been? NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg, who was asked about Mr. Macron's comments, said the alliance remains strong. Speaking in Berlin alongside the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, he said, "European allies are stepping up, investing more in defense. The US is increasing investments in Europe with more troops, more exercises. The reality is that we do work together. We have strengthened our collective defense. Any attempt to distance us from North America risks not only weakening the alliance, the transatlantic bond, but also weakening Europe." Mrs. Merkel said she disagreed with Mr. Macron's assertion that the alliance was brain dead. Cooperation was working, she said, and the transatlantic partnership was indispensable. How did NATO come about? The North Atlantic Treaty Organization was created in 1949 to counter the threat from the Soviet Union as the communist country sought to expand its power in Europe. The Soviet Union, an ally in World War II against Nazi Germany, became an adversary of the West during the Cold War. It set up its own Warsaw Pact military alliance, including the then communist countries of Eastern Europe, in 1955. That alliance was dissolved after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, and former Warsaw Pact countries, though not Russia, became NATO members in the years following. Originally set up to promote stability and well-being in the North Atlantic area, NATO was faced with finding a new purpose after the demise of the Soviet Union. From the mid-1990s, NATO forces were deployed on missions in the former Yugoslavia, launching airstrikes to push Serbia out of Kosovo, and in Afghanistan, where it took control of peacekeeping operations. But as NATO has expanded, it has struggled to overcome Russian concerns that the alliance poses a threat on its borders. Please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.